The officer mess hall of the starship Mugunghwa buzzed with quiet conversation. Steam rose from hot coffee cups while men and women in military uniforms shared their evening meal. The long metal tables reflected the bright overhead lights, and the smell of cooked food filled the air. Major Hyun Dae-ho sat alone at a corner table. His plain gray uniform showed only basic service patches. No shiny medals decorated his chest. No colorful ribbons marked his achievements. He looked older than his 42 years. Deep lines crossed his weathered face, and a long scar ran from his left ear to his jaw. His dark eyes held the tired look of someone who had seen too much war. He ate his simple dinner in silence. Around him, younger officers laughed and talked about their victories. They spoke of promotions and decorations. Dae-ho listened but said nothing. He had learned long ago that some stories were better left untold. The mess hall doors slid open with a soft hiss. The room grew quieter as Colonel Min Soo-jin entered. She moved with the confident stride of someone used to command. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, and her black hair was pulled back in a neat style. But what caught everyone's attention was her chest. Ribbons covered the left side of her uniform in neat rows. The golden stellar cross gleamed at the top. Below it hung the silver defense medal with its blue and white striped ribbon. The campaign ribbon for the Rigel sector showed 3 battle stars. The humanitarian service medal caught the light with its green and gold colors. More ribbons filled the rows below, each one telling a story of courage and success. Officers nodded respectfully as she passed their tables. Some stood briefly in greeting. Whispers followed her movement through the room. Colonel Soo-jin was famous throughout the fleet. Her rescue of 400 civilians at Kepler Station had made her a hero. News reports had shown her face across human space. Politicians spoke her name when they wanted to show how brave their soldiers were. She was only 35 years old, but her rapid rise through the ranks amazed everyone. From lieutenant to colonel in just 8 years was almost unheard of. Many predicted she would become an admiral before she turned 40. Her tactical skills were taught at military academies. Her courage was legendary. Soo-jin scanned the room, looking for an empty table. Her eyes moved across the scattered groups of officers until they found Dae-ho in his corner. For a moment, both officers stared at each other across the room. The air seemed to grow thick with tension. Other conversations slowed as people noticed the silent exchange. Dae-ho's jaw tightened. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. The scar on his face seemed to darken as his expression changed. Slowly, his lips curved into something that might have been a smile, but his eyes remained cold. It was not a pleasant expression. Soo-jin held his gaze without flinching. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands clenched slightly at her sides. She had dealt with hostile looks before. Political enemies and jealous rivals had tried to intimidate her many times. But this was different. This was personal. She walked toward his table with measured steps. The ribbons on her chest caught the light with each movement. The sound of her boots on the metal floor seemed loud in the suddenly quiet room. Other officers pretended to eat while watching from the corners of their eyes. Dae-ho set down his fork and leaned back in his chair. His scarred hands folded on the table in front of him. He looked up at the approaching colonel with open contempt. His voice carried clearly across the silent mess hall. "Quite a collection you have built there, Colonel." The words were simple, but everyone could hear the mockery in his tone. Several junior officers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Speaking to a superior officer that way could mean serious trouble, but Dae-ho did not seem to care about consequences. Soo-jin stopped 3 feet from his table. Her back was straight, and her voice was controlled when she spoke. Major Dae-ho, just his name and rank. Nothing more. But the weight of history hung between them like a heavy cloud. Everyone in the room could feel it, even if they did not understand it. Captain Park Ji-woo, who sat 2 tables away, recognized the tension immediately. He had served under Major Dae-ho for 3 years and knew his commander well. Dae-ho was usually quiet and professional. He treated everyone with respect, regardless of their rank. But something about Colonel Soo-jin brought out a different side of him. "Tell me, Colonel," Dae-ho continued, his voice growing louder. The sneer on his face deepened. When people ask about your accomplishments, what do you tell them? Sujin remained perfectly still. Her training had taught her to control her emotions under pressure, but Jiwoo noticed a slight tremor in her left hand. Something about this conversation was affecting her more than she wanted to show. I tell them what is in my service record, Major. Her voice stayed level, but there was a warning in her tone. Daeho laughed, but it was not a happy sound. It was bitter and full of old anger. He stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. Even standing, he was shorter than the colonel, but his presence filled the space between them. Your service record. He shook his head. How convenient. The mess hall had gone completely silent now. Even the kitchen staff had stopped their work to listen. This was not a normal disagreement between officers. This was something deeper and more dangerous. You want them to hear the official version, Daeho said, taking a step closer. The one that gets printed in the newspapers and read at award ceremonies. The one that makes everyone feel good about the war. Sujin's jaw tightened, but she did not back away. Major, if you have something to say, perhaps we should discuss it privately. Oh, I have plenty to say. Daeho's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the room. But here is my real question, Colonel Min Soo-jin, hero of Kepler Station, savior of 400 innocent lives. He paused, letting the tension build. His scarred face twisted with old pain and fresh anger. When he spoke again, his words cut through the silence like a blade. Do you give them the official tally or the real one? The question hung in the air like smoke from a fired weapon. Sujin did not move. She did not speak. She did not even blink. But something flickered deep in her eyes. For just a moment, the confident colonel disappeared, and something else looked out from behind her composed mask. Fear, guilt, regret. Then it was gone, and she was the decorated hero again. I think you have had enough to drink tonight, Major. I have not touched a drop, Daeho replied. This is me completely sober asking you a simple question. Official tally or real one? The standoff stretched between them. Two careers that had taken very different paths. Two versions of the same story. Two people who knew something the rest of the room could only guess at. Finally, Sujin spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. The official record stands, Major. Daeho nodded slowly as if he had expected that answer. Of course it does. It always does. He sat back down and picked up his fork. The conversation was over, but the damage was done. Questions would be asked. Stories would be told. And somewhere in the space between the official record and whatever truth Daeho was hiding, the real story waited to be discovered. Sujin turned and walked away without another word. She found an empty table on the far side of the room and sat alone, her impressive collection of ribbons catching the light. But now those same decorations seemed to weigh heavy on her chest, like chains instead of honors. The mess hall slowly returned to normal, but the tension remained. Captain Jiwoo watched both officers carefully and wondered what secrets lay buried in their shared past. Whatever had happened between them, it was far from over. In the corner, Major Daeho finished his dinner in silence, his scarred face showing nothing of the storm that raged inside him. Captain Park Jiwoo could not sleep. The confrontation in the mess hall played over and over in his mind. He had served under Major Daeho for 3 years and had never seen his commander show such anger toward another officer. There was history between those two, and Jiwoo needed to understand what it was. He made his way to the ship's records office in the early morning hours. The corridors were quiet, with only the night watch patrolling the decks. His access codes allowed him to review personnel files for his unit, but he was curious about more than just his own soldiers. The computer screen glowed blue in the dark office as Jiwoo pulled up service records. First, he searched for Colonel Min Soo-jin. Her file was impressive and long. Photos showed her career progression from a young lieutenant with bright eyes to the decorated colonel she was today. Born on Earth Colony 7, she had joined the military academy at 18. Her grades were excellent. Her physical fitness scores were among the highest in her class. Early assignments showed steady promotion and commendations for leadership. But the real story began 3 years ago, with the Battle of Kepler Station. Tiuinkyo. Official report was detailed and clear. Kepler Station was a civilian mining outpost in the Outer Rim. It housed nearly 800 people, including families and children. When alien forces attacked without warning, the station's defenses were quickly overwhelmed. A distress call reached the nearest fleet units, and rescue ships were sent immediately. Major Sujin, as she was then, commanded the assault transport, Brave Dawn. Her mission was to evacuate as many civilians as possible while other ships engaged the alien attackers. The enemy had superior numbers and weapons, making the rescue extremely dangerous. According to the reports, Sujin showed remarkable courage and tactical skill. She led 3 dangerous runs to the station while under heavy fire. Her ship took significant damage, but she refused to retreat. Her quick thinking and brave leadership saved 400 civilian lives before the station was completely destroyed. The rescue made her famous across human space. News reports called her the hero of Kepler Station. Politicians gave speeches about her courage. Military leaders used her as an example of what human officers could achieve. The Stellar Cross was personally awarded by Admiral Fleet Command. Her promotion to colonel came 6 months later. Jiwoo scrolled through dozens of news articles and official statements. Every source told the same story. Major Sujin had risked everything to save innocent lives. She had shown the kind of courage that inspired others and proved human determination could overcome any odds. Then Jiwoo searched for Major Daeho's records from the same battle. What he found was very different. Daeho had been aboard the destroyer Iron Wolf during the Kepler Station operation. His official role was to coordinate ground defense teams and secure the evacuation zones. But according to his service record, things went badly wrong. The report stated that Major Daeho had failed to follow direct orders during a critical phase of the operation. He had abandoned his assigned position without authorization and acted in a manner that endangered his unit and compromised the mission. Several soldiers under his command were listed as casualties, marked down as losses due to tactical errors and poor leadership. After Kepler Station, Daeho received an official reprimand. His promotion track was frozen. He was transferred to less important assignments and given command of smaller units. The report concluded that while Major Daeho was a capable officer, his judgment under pressure was questionable. Jiwoo stared at the screen in confusion. This did not match the man he knew. Major Daeho was careful and thoughtful. He never took unnecessary risks with his soldiers' lives. He studied every mission plan in detail and always had backup options ready. The idea that he would abandon his position or endanger his unit seemed impossible. But there it was in the official record. While Sujin became a hero, Daeho became a cautionary tale about officers who could not handle the pressure of real combat. Jiwoo was about to close the files when he noticed something odd. Dr. Yu Hirin had signed off on the medical reports from Kepler Station. She was the chief medical officer aboard the Mugunghwa now, and Jiwoo respected her knowledge and honesty. Perhaps she could provide more details about what had really happened. He found Dr. Yu in the medical bay 2 hours later. She was reviewing patient files and updating treatment records. Her gray hair was pulled back in a practical style, and her tired eyes showed the strain of managing medical care for 3,000 crew members. "Captain Jiwoo," she said without looking up from her work. "What brings you here so early? Are you feeling unwell?" "No, doctor. I wanted to ask you about something from a few years ago. The Battle of Kepler Station." Dr. Yu's hands stopped moving. She looked up at Jiwoo with sharp eyes. "That is an unusual topic for casual conversation, Captain. I have been reading the official reports. You were the chief medical officer for the rescue operation. I wondered if you remembered any details that might not be in the written records." The doctor set down her tablet and studied Jiwoo's face carefully. "Why are you asking about Kepler Station?" Jiwoo decided to be honest. There was an incident last night between Major Daeho and Colonel Sujin. They clearly have history, and I think it relates to that battle. I am trying to understand what happened. Dr. Yu was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful and measured. The official reports tell the story that everyone needs to hear, Captain. Sometimes that is all that matters. But you remember something different? I remember treating a lot of wounded people. I remember working for 18 hours straight trying to save lives. I remember that some of the injuries I saw did not match the official timeline of events. Jiwoo leaned forward. What do you mean? The reports say that Major Dae-ho never left his ship during the final phase of the evacuation. But I treated him for decompression sickness and radiation burns. Those are injuries you get from exposure to open space, not from sitting safely on a destroyer bridge. This was the first crack in the official story. Jiwoo felt his pulse quicken. What else? Several of his soldiers came to me with injuries, listed as friendly fire incidents. But the blast patterns and burn marks were not consistent with human weapons. They looked more like alien energy weapons to me. Did you report these inconsistencies? Dr. Yu smiled sadly. I was a young medical officer then, Captain. I reported what I observed, but I was told that combat situations are confusing and that my medical expertise did not extend to battlefield analysis. My concerns were noted and filed away. Do you still have those original medical files? I keep detailed personal records of all my patients, Captain. It helps me provide better care if they need treatment later, but I have never shared those files with anyone. Jiwoo understood what she was telling him. The official story was incomplete at best and possibly completely wrong, but Dr. Yu had kept the real medical evidence for 3 years, waiting for someone to ask the right questions. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, Colonel Soo-jin stood in her private quarters looking at her reflection in the mirror. The ribbons on her uniform caught the morning light, each one representing a moment of courage or achievement. But as she stared at her own image, the decorations seemed to grow heavier. She remembered the ceremony where Admiral Fleet Command had pinned the Stellar Cross to her uniform. Thousands of people had watched. Cameras had recorded every moment for broadcast across human space. She had stood at attention while speeches praised her heroism and sacrifice, but in her mind, she could still hear the sound of metal tearing as Kepler Station broke apart. She could still see the faces of people she had not been able to save, and she could still remember the choice she had made in those final moments, a choice that the official reports would never mention. Her communications console beeped with an incoming message. It was from Admiral Kang Tae-min, requesting a meeting to discuss new mission assignments. Soo-jin straightened her uniform and checked her appearance one final time. Whatever questions Captain Jiwoo or anyone else might ask, she had to focus on her duties now. The official record would stand because it had to stand. Too many people depended on the version of events that made her a hero. Too many careers and political decisions were built on that foundation. The truth was a luxury that she could not afford. But as she left her quarters to meet with the Admiral, Colonel Soo-jin wondered how long the official story would hold, and whether Major Dae-ho would eventually force her to choose between the comfortable lie and the dangerous truth. The emergency alarm echoed through the corridors of the Mugunghwa at 600 hours. Red lights flashed as the crew rushed to their battle stations. Captain Jiwoo had just finished his conversation with Dr. Yu when the alert came through. All thoughts about Kepler Station disappeared as he ran toward the bridge. Admiral Kang Tae-min stood in the center of the command deck, his weathered face grim. Officers hurried around him, pulling up star charts and communication logs. The main screen showed a sector map with a blinking red dot marking trouble. Report, Admiral Kang ordered as his senior staff assembled. Lieutenant Commander Lee Sun-ho stepped forward with a tablet in his hands. We received a distress signal from Harmony Ridge Mining Colony 30 minutes ago. They are under attack by alien forces. Initial reports suggest the same species that hit Kepler Station 3 years ago. A cold silence fell over the bridge. Everyone remembered Kepler Station. The victory had cost them dearly, and the enemy had learned from that battle. If they were attacking again, it meant they had grown stronger. How many civilians? Admiral, Kang asked. Approximately 600, sir. Mostly mining families and support staff. The colony has minimal defensive capabilities. Admiral Kang studied the tactical display. Harmony Ridge was 4 hours away at maximum speed. The aliens would have plenty of time to complete their attack before human forces arrived. but they had to try. Send word to all ships in the battle group. We move out in 20 minutes. Colonel Sujin will command the rescue operation. Major Daeho's ground units will provide support. Jiwoo watched as both officers acknowledged their orders. Colonel Sujin stood straight and professional, already planning the mission in her head. Major Daeho simply nodded, but Jiwoo could see the tension in his commander's shoulders. Another civilian colony under attack. Another chance for people to die while the military made difficult choices. 2 hours later, the senior officers gathered in the main briefing room. A holographic display showed Harmony Ridge Colony in detail. The mining facility was built into a large asteroid, with residential areas connected by tunnels and transport tubes. It was a complex target that would be difficult to evacuate quickly. Colonel Sujin stood at the front of the room, pointing to different sections of the colony. Our priority is speed. We hit the alien ships hard and fast, then move in for evacuation. The transport ships can dock at these 3 main ports. If we coordinate properly, we can have everyone off that rock in under 2 hours. Major Daeho raised his hand. What about the deep mining sections? According to these plans, there are work teams in tunnels that connect to the main colony through narrow passages. Those people will need more time to reach the evacuation points. The deeper miners represent less than 50 people, Sujin replied. We cannot risk the entire operation for such a small group. They will have to make their own way to the ports. Or we could send teams to guide them out safely. The room grew quiet. Everyone could hear the disagreement building between the two officers. Colonel Sujin's plan was tactically sound and efficient. Major Daeho's suggestion would save more lives but increase the danger for everyone. Major, we have limited time and resources, Sujin said firmly. We must focus on saving the maximum number of people with the minimum risk to our own forces. Daeho stood up slowly. His scarred face was calm, but his voice carried an edge of old anger. Maximum efficiency, just like Kepler Station. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Every officer present could feel the history between these two commanders. Admiral Kang cleared his throat but said nothing. This was a conversation that had been waiting 3 years to happen. Yes, Major, just like Kepler Station, where we saved 400 lives through careful planning and professional execution. And how many did we leave behind, Colonel? Sujin's jaw tightened. We saved everyone we could save given the tactical situation and available resources. That is the official answer. What about the real one? There it was again. The same question from the mess hall, but now it carried the weight of 600 new lives hanging in the balance. Captain Jiwoo found himself holding his breath, waiting for the colonel's response. But before Sujin could answer, Admiral Kang stepped forward. Enough. We have a mission to plan and civilians to save. Personal disagreements will be set aside until this operation is complete. Colonel Sujin, present your final plan. Major Daeho, prepare your teams for whatever support role is assigned. The briefing continued, but the tension remained. Sujin outlined an aggressive assault followed by rapid evacuation. Daeho listened quietly, occasionally making notes but offering no more challenges. When the meeting ended, both officers left without speaking to each other. Dr. Yu found Captain Jiwoo in the corridor outside the briefing room. She had been listening from the medical preparation area and had heard the heated exchange. They are going to repeat the same mistakes, she said quietly. The same impossible choices that tore them apart before. What really happened at Kepler Station, Doctor? I need to understand. Dr. Yu looked around to make sure they were alone. Meet me in Medical Storage Bay 3 in 1 hour. Bring no one else. The storage bay was small and cramped, filled with backup medical supplies and equipment. Dr. Yu had brought a secure tablet that was not connected to the ship's main network. She activated it and pulled up files that Jiwoo had never seen before. These are my personal medical records from Kepler Station, not the official reports, but my detailed notes on every patient I treated. The files showed a different picture of the battle. According to Dr. Yu's notes, Major Daeho had been brought to Medical Bay suffering from severe decompression sickness, radiation burns, and blast injuries. His treatment record showed that he had been exposed to vacuum for at least 10 minutes. This injury pattern is consistent with someone who was outside a ship during combat, Dr. Yu explained, not sitting safely on a bridge giving orders. More files showed his soldiers, burns from alien energy weapons, injuries from debris and explosions, medical logs that were time-stamped hours after the official evacuation was supposed to be complete. Major Daeho and his team were still fighting when the official records say the operation was over, Jiwoo realized. That is not all. Look at this. Dr. Yu showed him Colonel Sujin's medical file from that day. She had been treated for minor injuries and exhaustion, which matched her official story. But there was an interesting note in the psychological evaluation section. Subject shows signs of severe emotional distress, despite successful mission completion. Recommended for counseling and stress evaluation. Patient refused treatment, stating that others needed help more than she did. She was traumatized by her own success? Or by something that success cost her? Captain Jiwoo stared at the medical files, trying to piece together the real story. The official record said that Colonel Sujin had saved 400 people, while Major Daeho had failed in his duties. But the medical evidence suggested something very different had happened. Doctor, why have you kept these files secret for 3 years? Because I was hoping someone would eventually ask the right questions. Because I believe that the truth matters, even when the truth is inconvenient. The ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace near Harmony Ridge. Through the small porthole, they could see the mining colony in the distance. Alien ships swarmed around it like angry insects. Energy beams flashed between the attackers and the colony's weak defenses. We need to go, Jiwoo said. The operation is starting. But as he left the storage bay, Captain Jiwoo carried with him the knowledge that everything he thought he knew about his commanders was wrong. The hero and the failure were not what they seemed. And somewhere in the space between the official record and Dr. Yu's hidden files lay a truth that could change everything. On the bridge, Admiral Kang watched the tactical display as his ships moved into attack position. Colonel Sujin commanded from the assault transport New Dawn, ready to lead another desperate rescue. Major Daeho prepared his ground teams, knowing that once again he would face impossible choices about who to save and who to leave behind. The Battle of Harmony Ridge was about to begin, and with it the chance for old secrets to finally surface. The alien ships were faster than expected. Their weapons had improved since Kepler Station, and their tactics showed they had learned from their previous defeat. As the human fleet engaged the enemy, explosions lit up the darkness of space like deadly fireworks. Colonel Sujin commanded the rescue operation from the bridge of the New Dawn. Her transport ship was heavily armored but not built for extended combat. She needed to get close to Harmony Ridge Colony quickly, evacuate the civilians, and retreat before the alien forces overwhelmed her defenses. Enemy fighters moving to intercept, reported her tactical officer. They are trying to cut off our approach to the docking ports. Continue on course. Our escort ships will handle the fighters. Signal the colony that we are beginning evacuation. Procedures. On the main screen, Harmony Ridge Colony grew larger as they approached. The asteroid-based facility showed damage from alien bombardment. Atmosphere was leaking from several sections, and the main power grid flickered with unstable energy. Time was running short. Major Daeho prepared his teams in the transport bay. His soldiers checked their equipment and reviewed the colony layout one final time. Unlike the previous operation, Daeho had studied every tunnel and passage in the HFY mining facility. He knew where people might be trapped and how to reach them. Listen carefully, he told his troops. The official evacuation plan calls for us to secure the main docking areas and help move civilians to the transport ships. That is what we will do. But if we encounter people who need help reaching those areas, we help them. No one gets left behind because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sergeant Kim Min-ho, one of Daeho's most trusted soldiers, raised his hand. Sir, what if helping stragglers puts the main evacuation at risk? It was a fair question, and Daeho had wrestled with it since the briefing. The same question had haunted him for 3 years. Sergeant, our job is to save lives. All lives. We will find a way to do both. The New Dawn shuddered as it docked with Harmony Ridge. The airlock sealed with a hiss and human soldiers poured into the colony corridors. The evacuation had begun. Captain Jiwoo followed Major Daeho's team through the main residential section. Families hurried past carrying small bags and children. The colony staff had done a good job organizing people, but panic was setting in as the alien attacks grew stronger. Transport 1 is loading passengers now, came the report over their communication system. Transport 2 will be ready in 15 minutes. Colonel Sujin's voice crackled through the speakers from the command ship. All units maintain schedule. We have a narrow window before enemy reinforcements arrive. Everything was proceeding according to plan until the emergency alert sounded from the deep mining section. A group of workers was trapped by a collapsed tunnel. The blast damage had sealed their escape route, and they could not reach the main evacuation points on their own. How many people? Major Daeho asked over the radio. Approximately 30 workers, sir. They have limited air supply and no alternate route to the surface. Jiwoo watched his commander's face carefully. This was the moment that would define everything. Follow orders and focus on the main evacuation, or risk everything to save 30 people who were supposed to reach safety on their own. Colonel Sujin, we have civilians trapped in Section 7, requesting permission to send a rescue team. The radio was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Sujin's voice came through, tense but controlled. Major, our primary mission is the main evacuation. Those workers will have to find another way out. There is no other way out, Colonel. The tunnel collapse has them completely cut off. Then we will note their location for a follow-up mission after the primary evacuation is complete. Another long silence. Everyone in Daeho's team knew what that meant. By the time they could return, the trapped workers would be dead. The alien forces would either destroy the colony or the life support in that section would fail. Major Daeho looked at Captain Jiwoo and his soldiers. These were good people who had followed him through dangerous missions before. They trusted his judgment, even when that judgment went against direct orders. Sergeant Kim, take half the team and continue supporting the main evacuation. Captain Jiwoo, you are with me. We are going to Section 7. Sir, Jiwoo said carefully. That is directly against Colonel Sujin's orders. Yes, it is, just like 3 years ago. As they moved through the colony corridors toward the trapped miners, Jiwoo began to understand what had really happened at Kepler Station. This was not the first time Major Daeho had chosen to disobey orders to save lives. It was a pattern that had cost him his career and his reputation. The journey to Section 7 took them through damaged areas where alien weapons had torn holes in the colony structure. Emergency patches held back the vacuum of space, but the repairs were temporary. Daeho led his small team through the maze of tunnels with the confidence of someone who had studied every map and blueprint. They found the trapped workers huddled in a maintenance area. The tunnel collapse had sealed them in, but it had also protected them from the worst of the alien bombardment. The miners were frightened but uninjured. We are going to get you out, Major Daeho told them, but we need to move fast. The rescue was complicated and dangerous. The collapsed tunnel had to be cleared by hand, with constant risk that more debris would fall. Alien attacks continued to shake the colony, making the unstable areas even more hazardous. It was exactly the kind of operation that military doctrine said not to attempt during an active evacuation, but Major Daeho and his team worked with the efficiency of people who had done this before. They used cutting tools to break through the debris. They set up temporary supports to prevent further collapse. They moved the injured workers first and helped the others navigate the dangerous passage back to safety. Captain Jiwoo realized that this was what Major Daeho did. Not the official version where he abandoned his post, but the real version where he risked everything to save people. Others had written off as acceptable losses. Meanwhile, Colonel Sujin coordinated the main evacuation from her command ship. Transport 1 had successfully loaded 400 civilians and departed for safety. Transport 2 was nearly full. The operation was proceeding exactly as planned, but she could not stop thinking about the 30 workers trapped in Section 7. She could not stop remembering another group of trapped civilians from 3 years ago, people who had been left behind because saving them would have risked the larger mission. Colonel, her communications officer reported, Major Daeho's team is not responding to check-in calls. Their last known position was near Section 7. Sujin closed her eyes. She knew exactly what Daeho was doing because she had seen him do it before. He was risking his life and the lives of his soldiers to save people that command had decided were expendable. "Signal the escort ships," she ordered. "Extend defensive perimeter around Section 7, and delay Transport 2 departure by 15 minutes. Her tactical officer looked confused. "Colonel, that puts us over the planned evacuation timeline." "I know what it does, Lieutenant." Colonel Soo-jin was making the same choice she had made 3 years ago. She was violating her orders to give Major Daeho the time and support he needed to save those 30 miners. The official mission plan said to abandon them. But the real mission, the human mission, said to bring everyone home. When Major Daeho's team emerged from Section 7 with all 30 rescued workers, they found transport ships waiting for them and fighter cover protecting their route. Colonel Soo-jin had quietly adjusted the entire operation to accommodate a rescue mission that officially never happened. "All civilians evacuated successfully," came the final report. "Colony Harmony Ridge is clear." As the human fleet withdrew from the battle zone, Captain Ji-woo finally understood the truth about Kepler Station. Major Daeho had not abandoned his post 3 years ago. He had done exactly what he did today. He had risked everything to save people who were supposed to be acceptable losses, and Colonel Soo-jin had not simply followed orders to become a hero. She had made the same impossible choice she made today. She had quietly supported a rescue mission that went against direct commands, knowing it would cost them both if anyone ever learned the truth. The official record would show another successful evacuation led by Colonel Soo-jin. Major Daeho's unauthorized rescue would disappear into classified files. But Captain Ji-woo had witnessed the real story, and he finally understood why both officers carried such heavy burdens from their shared past. The journey back to the fleet base took 18 hours. During that time, Captain Ji-woo could not stop thinking about what he had witnessed at Harmony Ridge. The rescue operation had been a success, but the real story was hidden beneath layers of official reports and classified files. He found Major Daeho in the maintenance bay checking equipment with his team. The rescue gear was dirty and damaged from the mining colony operation. Cutting tools showed wear from breaking through collapsed tunnels. Environmental suits had patches where debris had torn the fabric. 30 more people who get to go home, to their families, Sergeant Kim Min-ho said as he cleaned a plasma cutter. "Good day's work, sir." Major Daeho nodded but said nothing. He never celebrated these victories, Ji-woo realized. Each successful rescue just reminded him of all the people he had not been able to save over the years. "Sir, can I speak with you privately?" Daeho looked up from the equipment he was inspecting. "What is on your mind, Captain?" They walked to a quiet corner of the maintenance bay where their conversation would not be overheard. Ji-woo had rehearsed this moment during the long journey home, but he still did not know how to begin. "I have been researching the Battle of Kepler Station, sir. I found some inconsistencies in the official reports." Daeho's expression did not change, but his hands stopped working on the equipment. "That was 3 years ago, Captain. Ancient history. Dr. Yu showed me her medical files from that operation. Your injuries were not consistent with the official story about what happened." For a long moment, Major Daeho said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was tired. "Dr. Yu always was too thorough for her own good. She kept detailed records because she believed the truth mattered. Just like I believe it matters. The truth is a dangerous thing, Captain. Sometimes the official version serves everyone better." Ji-woo took a deep breath. "What really happened at Kepler Station, sir?" Major Daeho set down his tools and looked directly at his subordinate. In his scarred face, Ji-woo could see the weight of 3 years of carrying secrets. "The same thing that happened today, Captain. People were trapped and needed help. Command decided they were acceptable losses. I decided they were not." "How many people?" 200 miners in the deep sections. The tunnel network was damaged, and they could not reach the main evacuation points. Sound familiar? It was exactly like Harmony Ridge, but on a larger scale. Ji-woo could picture the scene. Hundreds of families trapped in collapsed mining tunnels while the official evacuation proceeded according to schedule. "The reports say you abandoned your position." "I did abandon my position. I took my entire squad and went after those 200 people while the rest of the fleet prepared to withdraw. And Colonel Soo-jin? Major Dae-ho was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice carried a mix of respect and old pain. She knew what I was going to do before I did it. She had studied the same maps and seen the same tactical reports. She knew those people were going to die if someone did not help them. So what did she do? She delayed the fleet withdrawal by 2 hours. She told Admiral Kang that her ship was having technical difficulties and needed time for repairs. She repositioned the defensive screen to provide cover for the mining sections. She gave me everything I needed to reach those people and bring them home. The pieces of the puzzle were finally coming together. Colonel Soo-jin had not simply followed orders to become a hero. She had risked her own career to support an unauthorized rescue mission. But the official reports blame you for the casualties. 12 of my soldiers died in that rescue operation, Captain. 12 good people who volunteered to save strangers they had never met. The official report needed someone to blame for those deaths, and I was the obvious choice. Why did you accept that blame? Because Colonel Soo-jin's career was more valuable to the war effort than mine. She had the tactical skills and political connections to make real changes in how we conduct rescue operations. If the truth came out, we both would have been court-martialed. This way, she could continue to save lives while I just became a cautionary tale about officers who could not follow orders. Captain Ji-woo felt like he was seeing both officers clearly for the first time. Major Dae-ho had sacrificed his reputation to protect someone who shared his values. Colonel Soo-jin had accepted honors that belonged to others because she believed she could use those honors to help more people in the future. The 200 miners. Did you save them? Major Dae-ho smiled, for the first time in the conversation. Every single one, Captain. All 200 made it to the evacuation ships, along with the 400 from the official rescue. But those extra people never appeared in the final reports. 600 people instead of 400. Yes. But officially, Colonel Soo-jin saved 400 and I failed in my duties. The real tally versus the official tally. That evening, Captain Ji-woo found himself outside Colonel Soo-jin's quarters. He had requested a meeting and she had agreed to see him despite the late hour. Her room was neat and organized with few personal decorations. The ribbons and medals from her uniform hung on a display case, each one representing a moment of official recognition. You wanted to speak with me about the Harmony Ridge operation, Captain? Yes, Colonel, and about Kepler Station. She became very still. Kepler Station is ancient history, Captain. The reports from that operation have been filed and reviewed. There is nothing more to discuss. I know about the 200 additional miners, Colonel. I know that Major Dae-ho saved them while you provided cover and delayed the fleet withdrawal. Colonel Soo-jin walked to the display case and stared at her decorations. What do you think you know, Captain? I know that the official hero and the official failure are both lies. I know that you worked together to save 600 people instead of 400, and I know that Major Dae-ho accepted blame for casualties that happened during an unauthorized rescue mission. She turned to face him, and for the first time since he had known her, Colonel Soo-jin looked tired. Why are you bringing this up, now? Because I watched the same thing happen at Harmony Ridge. Major Dae-ho went after trapped civilians while you quietly adjusted the entire operation to support him. Because I think this pattern has been repeating for 3 years and I want to understand why. Colonel Soo-jin sat down at her desk and gestured for Ji-woo to take the opposite chair. Understanding why will not change anything, Captain. The official records will remain as they are. But the truth matters, Colonel, at least to the people who were saved. The truth is that Major Dae-ho is the bravest officer I have ever served with, she said quietly. He risks everything to save people that others consider expendable. He never asks for recognition or gratitude. He just does what is right, regardless of the consequences. And you protect him by providing official cover for his actions. I use my rank and reputation to ensure that his heroism can continue. Every ribbon on my uniform represents not just my own actions but the sacrifices of soldiers like Major Dae-ho, who choose duty over recognition. Captain Ji-woo looked at the display case with new understanding. Those decorations were not just personal achievements. They were symbols of a partnership that had saved hundreds of lives through unofficial cooperation and shared sacrifice. Why does he hate you then? The confrontation in the mess hall was real. Colonel Sujin smiled sadly. He hates what I represent, Captain. He hates that good soldiers die while politicians give speeches about heroes. He hates that the real story of courage and sacrifice gets buried under official narratives designed to make people feel better about war. But he does not hate you personally. No. But sometimes I think he hates that I accept the recognition that should go to people like him. And sometimes I hate it too. As Captain Jiwoo left the colonel's quarters, he finally understood the full weight of what both officers carried. They had found a way to work together to save lives, but the cost was a public lie that painted one as a hero and the other as a failure. The real tally of their courage would never be officially recorded, but it lived in the hearts of 600 people from Kepler Station and 30 miners from Harmony Ridge who were alive because 2 officers had chosen duty over orders. 3 weeks after Harmony Ridge, the Mugunghwa received new orders. They were being reassigned to patrol the Outer Rim, where alien activity had increased. It meant months of dangerous duty far from the main fleet bases. For many officers, such an assignment would be seen as punishment or exile. But Major Daeho seemed relieved to be moving away from the politics of fleet headquarters. Captain Jiwoo found his commander in the observation deck, watching the stars through the large viewing window. The deck was quiet at this hour, with only the soft hum of the ship's engines breaking the silence. "Sir, I wanted to thank you for trusting me with the truth about Kepler Station." Major Daeho did not turn from the window. "The truth is a heavy burden, Captain. I hope you are prepared to carry it." "I have been thinking about something you said, about Colonel Sujin's career being more valuable to the war effort than yours. Do you really believe that?" "She has the rank and connections to change policies, Captain. She can ensure that rescue operations receive better support and that civilian evacuation is given higher priority. My influence extends only to the soldiers, under my direct command. But your example influences more than just your soldiers, sir. The crew saw what you did at Harmony Ridge. Word spreads through the fleet about officers who will risk everything to save civilians. That has value too." Daeho finally turned to look at his subordinate. "Perhaps. But symbols and examples do not save lives, Captain. Actions do." Before Jiwoo could respond, the ship's communication system activated. "Major Daeho and Captain Jiwoo, report to Admiral Kang's ready room immediately." They found Admiral Kang waiting with a classified message tablet and a grim expression. He was an older officer, with gray hair and the weathered look of someone who had spent decades making difficult decisions. "Gentlemen, we have received disturbing intelligence about alien fleet movements. It appears they are planning a major offensive against 3 colonies simultaneously. The attacks will be coordinated to prevent us from responding to all of them effectively." Admiral Kang activated a holographic display showing the 3 target colonies. Each was lightly defended and filled with civilian populations. The tactical situation was designed to force the human fleet to choose which colonies to save and which to abandon. "What are our orders, sir?" Major Daeho asked. "Fleet Command is still deciding. The preliminary plan calls for dividing our forces to provide token defense at all 3 locations. It will minimize our losses but likely result in significant civilian casualties." Captain Jiwoo studied the tactical display. The plan Admiral Kang described was militarily sound but morally troubling. It accepted civilian deaths as necessary to preserve military assets for future operations. "There is another option, Admiral," Kang continued. "Colonel Sujin has requested a private meeting to discuss alternative strategies. She specifically asked that you both attend." They found Colonel Sujin in the secure briefing room, surrounded by star charts and tactical analyses. She had been working through the night exploring every possible approach to the crisis. Her usually perfect uniform was wrinkled, and her eyes showed the strain of wrestling with impossible choices. "Admiral, gentlemen," she said as they entered. "Thank you for coming. I want to discuss a different approach to the 3-colony situation." She activated the holographic display and began outlining her plan. Instead of dividing forces equally, she proposed concentrating the fleet to save 1 colony completely while using smaller units to delay attacks at the other two locations. This strategy accepts that we cannot save everyone, she admitted, but it ensures that we save as many people as possible from at least one location. Major Deho studied the plan carefully. Which colony do we abandon, Colonel? That is what I wanted to discuss with you, Major. Your opinion carries weight with me. The room fell silent. For 3 years, these two officers had worked together in secret to save lives that others considered expendable. Now they faced a choice that would determine the fate of thousands of people. New Shanghai Colony has the best natural defenses, Admiral Kang observed. We could hold it with a smaller force. But Terra Nova has the largest civilian population, Colonel Sujin noted. Nearly 10,000 people, including many children. Highland Station is the most isolated, Major Daiho said quietly. If we abandon it, those people have no chance of receiving help from other sources. The weight of the decision pressed down on all of them. Each colony represented thousands of lives, families, and communities. Choosing to save one meant accepting the destruction of the others. There is a fourth option, Major Deho said after a long pause. We could attempt to save all three. Colonel Sujin shook her head. The tactical analysis shows that spreading our forces that thin would likely result in failure at all three locations. Not if we used unconventional tactics, Colonel. Not if we were willing to accept risks that military doctrine says are unacceptable. Admiral Kang leaned forward. What do you have in mind, Major? Small teams inserted ahead of the main fleet. Special operations units that could organize civilian evacuations and establish defensive positions before the alien attacks begin. It would be dangerous and would likely result in significant military casualties. But it might save more civilian lives. It was classic Deho thinking. Risk everything to save everyone, regardless of official doctrine or acceptable loss ratios. But this time, he was proposing it as official strategy rather than unauthorized action. Colonel Sujin studied the tactical display with new interest. It could work, but only if the special operations teams received full fleet support. No delays, no tactical withdrawals, no acceptable loss calculations. Are you prepared to stake your career on such a plan, Colonel? Admiral Kang asked. The question hung in the air like smoke from a fired weapon. Colonel Sujin had built her reputation on successful operations and sound tactical judgment. Supporting a high-risk plan that violated military doctrine could destroy everything she had worked to achieve. But as she looked at Major Deho, she remembered why they had started working together in the first place. It was not about careers or recognition. It was about saving lives. Yes, Admiral. I am prepared to stake my career on this plan. The operation that followed became known as the Three-Colony Defense. Official records would show it as a brilliant, tactical victory led by Colonel Sujin's innovative strategy. Her reputation was enhanced, and she received another promotion, along with additional decorations. But Captain Jiwoo knew the real story. He had watched Major Deho lead the most dangerous insertion missions personally. He had seen the colonel coordinate fleet movements to provide precise support at critical moments. He had witnessed both officers risk everything to ensure that not a single civilian was abandoned. All three colonies were saved with minimal military casualties. It was a victory that would be studied at military academies and used as an example of what human determination could achieve. 6 months later, Captain Jiwoo found himself back in the officers' mess hall aboard the Mugunghwa. Major Deho sat at his usual corner table, his uniform still bare of decorations despite his role in the three-colony defense. Colonel Sujin entered with her chest gleaming with new ribbons, including the Fleet Command Cross for exceptional leadership. But this time, something was different. When their eyes met across the room, there was no anger or tension. Instead, there was understanding and mutual respect. The burden of secrets had been shared, and both officers had found a way to work together openly. Colonel Sujin approached Deho's table, and this time she sat down across from him. The mess hall grew quiet, but it was the silence of curiosity rather than fear. "Major," she said simply. "Colonel," he replied with a slight nod. I have been offered command of the new Civilian Protection Task Force, she said. It will be responsible for developing better evacuation procedures and rescue protocols. I need an experienced officer to serve as my deputy commander. Major Daeho set down his coffee cup and looked directly at her. Someone who knows how to save people that others consider expendable? Someone who never gives up on bringing everyone home. The offer hung between them like a bridge across 3 years of misunderstanding. Colonel Soo-jin was proposing to make their unofficial partnership into official policy. No more secret missions or unauthorized rescues. No more official heroes and hidden failures. The position comes with a promotion to lieutenant colonel, she added, and full authority to develop new tactical doctrine for civilian rescue operations. Major Daeho considered the proposal carefully. What about the acceptable loss calculations? What about orders to abandon people when the risk becomes too high? Those orders will come through me first, and I have learned that sometimes the best thing an officer can do is trust their soldiers to do what is right, even when headquarters cannot. She was using his own words from their conversation months earlier. The message was clear. She understood what mattered to him, and she was offering him the chance to make it official policy. There is one condition, Daeho said finally. Name it. The soldiers who died in unauthorized rescue missions over the years. The ones whose sacrifices were buried in classified files and forgotten. I want them properly honored. Colonel Soo-jin nodded. A memorial wall in the new task force headquarters.